Hi, everybody, and welcome to a Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. Once again, I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle, along with
the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, and I'm very excited for our topic today, so I'm glad you guys are here to join us. But we got to do the spiel first. So here's our little YouTube spiel for those who are watching on their replay. You want to do the honors, Mushtaq?
All right, I'll do the honors just this once. So if you are watching this on YouTube, first of all, if you've never seen us before, welcome. And if you have, welcome back. I would like to suggest to you, and this is only a suggestion, that you might consider hitting that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, and hit the little bell to let you know when we put stuff up, because we're going to be putting up a lot more stuff this year. We have our first interview in the can, and that's very exciting. And do consider about making a comment down below.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We love your comments. We live for your comments. And we
wait with bated breath for your comments.
And we try to answer every single one of them, even if it's a, well, you know, I really don't know. That's still an answer. Maybe not the one you wanted,
but a fair one. So, there you go. And yeah, so we've had some excellent comments lately. Thank you so much
We've had some brilliant comments lately. Yeah,
definitely. And had some people join the forum from those conversations, so it's been really nice.
Yes, and that's the other thing. If you look down, way down there in the description, at the bottom of the description, after everything else in the description, you will find a series of links. And that series will include our mailing list, which you can get on. And that way you can get an invitation to join us in our talks, which we will be handing out until such time as there are too many people for us to handle all at once, which will probably take a little while.
It will take some time. I mean, we've had a really consistent, lovely group, and newcomers are totally welcome to join. But
we love having
the vibe is intimate. We love it that way, and it's been that way pretty consistently, and that makes us happy. Eventually, we're going to be starting our European edition of Talks in the Nine-Sided Circle
next month.
Yep. So again, if you'd like to participate in those, just like with our Sunday Talks within the Nine-Sided Circle, you will be able to participate in those via the links we hand out via our mailing list, emails, and our Facebook forum. So there you go.
And there will be a different link than the one.
It'll be a different link. Yep.
Yeah.
Have you chosen the time of day for it?
Not quite yet. We have been in consultation with some of our European folks like Funny, and we're gonna probably make it a comfortable evening time at Greenwich Mean Time, so that it'll be at worst an uncomfortable evening time, a little bit to the east of us. I was checking, and we have a 7 to 11 hour time difference between us and our folks in Europe and the Mideast and North Africa and such things. So,
yeah. So again, this isn't just for our European folks, it's also for people in those other regions as well. So keep that in mind. If that's where you are, you will have, theoretically an opportunity to be with us at a time more convenient for you. So
yeah,
there we go.
Oh yes, coming up this coming week, the week that we are in right now, before any other week that comes up, this week we will be putting up our very first interview that we have done, for which we are very, very excited. We interviewed this poor woman for 2 hours. We're going to give you the whole thing. And it was nice. It was relaxed. It was, she's quite brilliant. She's very eloquent. And I think you will all enjoy this. And as you know, what we do is not for the people with short attention spans. So we figure 2 hours is a good time.
And just throw the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so that's the plan. That will be released sometime probably midweek, would you say?
Yeah, probably Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to get approval with her of everything that we're doing, like the
Yeah.
write-up and the image and all of that, because I don't want to do
Excellent.
anything that she doesn't like. Because we want her to come back.
Yes. Okay, so there's that. All right, so are you ready to talk about what we're going to talk about today, Mushtak?
I was born ready.
Okay, so today, as our title card attests, we are going to be talking about the school, both, archetypally and specifically our school in the 21st century. Yeah, so Mishak, why don't you get us started? But I'm sure I have a lot to say alongside you, so we're just going to play this back and forth,
Okay. What can I say? I wonder. It looks like one of Zainab's rugs back there.
Where?
Behind me.
Oh,
Right
yeah,
there.
behind you, yeah. On the wall there.
Yeah. What to say? Okay.
Did I throw you in the hot seat today?
You threw me in the hot seat. I was going to make you do all of this, but that's okay. The school has been around to support and disseminate the work for a very, very long time. We know it's been around for 2,000 years or more. We can tell that from history. Beyond that, it's mythology, but the mythology goes back quite a ways. Our part of the school goes back maybe 1,000 years. And we can trace that back to a particular individual and an event that happened in Baghdad, of all places, 1,000 years ago, or a little over 1,000 years ago now. And but here's the thing. The school never stays the same. And yet it has certain qualities. The school must adapt to its surroundings and environment. In the blurb that we wrote up for this, we said that traditionally you look at people, place, and circumstance. This is an old Sufi thing. And it's not even a Sufi thing. This was what I was taught years ago when I was but a lad on how to understand the Quran, is that for everything that is written in it, you ask, who are the people that the message was given to? Where was it given? And what were the circumstances under which it was given? And if you don't have those three things, you don't understand what you're reading. And that is something that holds true to this day. So, just over 100 years ago, G.I. Gurdjieff showed up in the West, and he brought a facet of the school with him. And during his time, it was brilliant. Today, a lot of it is ridiculous because he was talking from a point of view of 19th century science. He was using the best models he had at the time to describe what he was talking about. And those models are not worth much anymore, a lot of them. Some of them are, surprisingly. But some of them have been superseded by more accurate models of the universe. The school adapts to that. And it leaves behind the people who can't change. And they form Gurdjieff groups and all of this kind of stuff.
Museum Sufis.
Museums, yes, I was going to mention Sufism has done the same thing. perhaps even more than the Gurdjieff groups, because we've had more practice.
1,000 years of practice.
1,400 years
Yeah,
of practice.
yeah, yep.
And you get what I call museum Sufis left in every generation, which are the people who form these formal groups that teach the same thing to everybody over and over again. And they do it for generations. And the thing that you see about them is it doesn't much work. Believe it or not, wearing a turban does not make you any more enlightened. I know, I've tried. I can tie a mean turban and it didn't do a thing for me other than it made me look cool.
So it didn't do it for you, huh?
Didn't do it for me.
Yeah, wearing a hijab didn't work for me either.
Yeah.
Nope.
I don't know though. You look pretty cool in a hijab.
I mean,
You could rock that hijab.
there were moments. There were moments of rocking the hijab. But again, did it do anything for me on a like enlightenment level? No, not necessarily. There's a lot of ego in there. Learned a lot, moved on.
Yeah. So here is our hypothesis that the world, or parts of the world, unfortunately, a lot of the parts of the world that some of us are sitting in are moving into what could be considered almost a new dark age. And you would say, wait, Mushtaq, what do you mean by that? We have all of this stuff, but we also have a huge amount of crazy people who are completely lost in delusion, not even illusion. They're lost into delusion. They aren't going out on dates with Maya. They're going out on dates with Maya's junkie cousin. And they are completely lost. And that's what makes a dark age dark. And that includes, I mean, think about it. Almost half the people who voted in this country voted for Donald Trump last election. Fortunately, not quite half. Several million more voted against him, but a whole bunch of millions voted for him.
I just gotta interrupt you for a second.
Yep.
Do you think you can make me a host?
Didn't I make you a host?
No.
God, what's wrong with me?
Failure. There you go. Okay.
Ah,
Okay, so Donald Trump in the Dark Ages.
yes. Donald Trump in the Dark Ages. He's only one sign of the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages are, any Dark Age is, you can tell you're in a Dark Age because beliefs and fantasies are more important than facts.
And we're seeing that manifest in other ways, like QAnon.
Yeah, boy, you want to talk about some crazy people. Folks who are falling down the QAnon rabbit hole are completely detached from reality, and yet they think that they know the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're picking on everybody tonight.
Religious fundamentalism.
Yep, of every sort.
Yeah, every sort.
So,
political fundamentalism.
yep, all of these things.
Yeah, okay, so with that understood.
Yes, you may be wondering what the school is doing in our lifetime. Well, let me tell you, because we actually have a few things that we know about this. The school, and I say that in capital letters and quotes, There is the school, and then there is our classroom within the school. Y'all are sitting in our classroom within the school.
Mhm.
The school is a hell of a lot much bigger than us.
I like thinking about it that way.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah.
And the thing is, each of you have your own classrooms, whether you know it or not. Some of them might be empty at the moment, but you may fill them. So, in this dark time, much is required of us. This is where I make the pitch for you all to send me all of your money and deed your houses over to the Nine-Sided Circle.
Abandon all your friendships and relationships.
No, sadly, we don't get to collect all your money.
No Rolls Royce collection for us.
Yep. We may even send you money just so that you come back. You never know. What is required of us is that the school is going to have to become a little bit more hidden in some ways, while still being able to attract the people who need to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about this hidden piece.
The hidden piece. We've done the hidden piece as Sufis over and over again in the history of Islam, especially because every now and again the mullahs all pop up and go, "Sufis bad.
Yeah.
Let's stone them. Let's kill them all.
Assassinate. Yeah.
Yeah, we have seen this in our lifetimes. We saw it in Iran when Khomeini took over. We have seen it with the various Boko Haram and Al Qaeda and Daesh and
ISIS, Daesh. Yeah.
All of these people who like to burn down Sufi libraries and kill Sufi people,
ruin shrines, etc. Yep.
So that's why the way will occult itself, we say. It will be a little bit hidden, but not in the ways that it has been done before. Before, you would go off and create little monasteries far away in places that were nearly inaccessible. We don't do that anymore. Later on, we will talk about what we call temporary autonomous zones, a term which we stole from a guy by the name of Peter Lamborn Wilson, also known as Hakim Bey.
Kind of a controversial figure.
Very controversial figure. Basically, he's a dick, but
yeah. The principle and the value in principle still stands. Yes. Yeah. So we'll be getting into that too.
So, in this time of dread and darkness, the school is designed for adults. This is one of the reasons that we have been talking about human adulthood off and on for the last 2.5 years. Because it takes people who are working on their own adultdom to be able to do this work.
Yeah, I mean, that's just about a prerequisite. Of course, it can be emerging through doing the work that we do, but to really embrace practice, embrace the work and stuff, you do need to be working on your adulthood, if not beforehand, then kind of concurrently. It is part of the work.
Yeah, basically, if you haven't been working on it beforehand, you're not going to be able to tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Because, and this is important, hierarchical structures and spiritual masters are straight out in this time.
Straight out, like they're just
like they're
passe,
they're gone.
Yeah.
They are of the last cycle.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a big about based on tradition, because there's so much about tradition, historically speaking, that involved kind of a hierarchy where you have like the master teacher and then the master teacher's assistants, teacher type people, and then you kind of go down rank on rank on rank until you get to the very beginners, and everybody kind of has to seek the approval and the permission, etc., of the master. And that is not the kind of structure we have sought to or will be seeking to be creating within the nine-sided circle, that's for sure.
Hell no, we can barely figure out what we need to do, let alone
Right.
figure out what you need to do.
Yeah.
But there's
So
it's more important than that, though.
Yeah.
The master disciple relationship is a parent child relationship.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And that is not going to work for this time for the work. There are plenty of places that it will work just fine. This isn't those. This is the place where you got to put on your big boy or your big girl pants or your big person pants, so we can go gender neutral because that's also important. And do the work not because daddy or mommy told you to, but do the work because that's what you need to do.
That's what you want to do. Even in your discomfort, yes, you both want and need to do this work. And you are committing to it intentionally. And not only that, but you're taking personal responsibility for your process in doing the work and your progress. So no one can make you do anything. No one is going to drag you to success on your journey, whatever that might be for you.
Yes. And that gets us, why do you say that this is the way it is? And this gets us to our first important point. And we have waited this long because by now all of the people with short attention spans have flipped off to a video of kittens playing and things like that. Real communication can only happen between equals. Let me repeat that, probably more than once. Real communication can only happen between equals. A couple of years ago, one of the first videos that we did was called the difference between vertical and horizontal teaching. And it was a great video, and hardly anybody watched it. Very sad.
Sad.
So sad. But
may I ask? Sorry.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Why can't the teacher, who's clearly considerably more advanced than the student, why can't they come down to the level of the student just temporarily to be on an equal level with them and then communicate on an equal level?
Every teacher does that to a certain extent, but it's not a matter of going down to where the person is. You are not down from me. You are not down from Noor. We are all human. We are all equal in our consciousness.
Right.
I may know a few cool things that you don't know yet. Noor certainly knows a few cool things that you don't know yet. But that does not in any way make us inherently higher than you.
Does that make sense so far? I know that this is difficult because I have had a hard time wrapping my head around it. So if it takes time for us to hash this out, I expect that.
So there is no need to go down to the student's level. There is occasional need to figure out how to speak the student's language. But that's the only real thing. The thing that we know, and we know this absolutely, this is not a belief. This is what we know. When you are awake, you are the same awake as myself or Noor or Diane or Mustaqim or anybody else. When you're awake, you are the same awake as the Buddha is awake. The only difference between you and I is maybe I have practiced enough I can hold that sense of awakeness for a little bit longer.
Yeah, but there's no necessarily superiority, quote unquote, in that. Like in the big scheme of things, that does not change the value of one life compared to another, or one, achievement status, that kind of thing. Jonathan, you unmuted yourself. Do you have a thought to share?
Yes, I'm uncomfortable with that idea, but I'm going to put that aside.
What about it makes you uncomfortable?
What I wanted to ask was,
Okay.
what I'm looking for is guidance from someone who's been and done, been and done where I believe I want to go, and can guide me because they're experienced in that.
Okay, do you
How to go
realize
into
that
those places.
you can be guided without having to kiss somebody's ring?
Yes.
Good. That's a start.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been to places you haven't been or haven't been as often. So is Noor. We know how to get there. We can show you ways to get there. This does not make us in any way morally or spiritually superior to you. And we are not the only ones who have these answers. There are plenty of people out there doing the work.
Yeah.
We may have the answers that are comfortable or uncomfortable for you, as the case may be, whatever it is that you need. But that just means that you probably belong to this school rather than the school down the road. This classroom rather than the classroom one over. But yes, the job of the teacher is to give guidance to the student.
Mhm.
And it must, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think of it as showing the way and being a resource for feedback. That is how I envision the role of the teacher.
Yeah, and also to tell you when you're full of shit.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's
the
part of
most
what
important
feedback
role of the
is.
teacher,
Does this help at all, Jonathan?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yeah. The thing to understand, though, is that we can only really give you that kind of guidance if we're on an equal footing.
Yeah. I mean, if there's coercion,
or
if there's
even just hierarchy.
Yeah. I mean, hierarchy tends to create this sense of, some kind of parent-child dynamic where you're wanting approval, you don't want to be abandoned, and all of those things can come up. But we approach that feeling as two adults talking to one another. I hope that makes sense too.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I was hanging out with a particular Sufi group who shall remain nameless. And I noticed this pattern. And the pattern was that the leader, the sheikh of the group, would say something, and then he'd look and he'd ask somebody, "What do you think?" And the person would always say, "It's as you say, sheikh. I think what you think." Nobody had an opinion. And this went on. I was not a member of this group. I was a guest. People would invite me to come and hang out, and I was sitting there, I was listening, and the subject of women and ultrasounds came up,
Wow.
and the sheikh opined that women should under no circumstances have ultrasounds because the ultrasound would alter the genetics of the baby.
Mm,
And then he made the mistake of turning to me and saying, "What do you think?" To which I replied, "I think that that's completely absurd. There is zero scientific evidence for that. And I don't know why you would say such a thing." And you could have heard an ant fart in that room. Needless to say, I was not invited back for a while. But that's the problem with hierarchy. You are always in a position where the person at the top is never told the truth.
yes, yes, that's an important piece to this too.
Yeah.
If you're afraid to tell the truth, you know, because of one reason or another, they're not able to give you the, let's say, as Jonathan said, the guidance that you need because you're not being honest with them.
Yeah. And it can go so far as babies dying because mothers don't get ultrasounds to detect easily correctable problems.
Right.
Because there is a superstition about that.
So part of this whole interaction as equals involves, you know, getting those gut checks, like using your common sense, communicating with one another in such a way that you are able to use all your faculties towards this common cause of awakening.
And that means that the teaching, the school must be non-hierarchical. Did you ever notice that there is no true antonym for the word hierarchy? It's always a negation of
Yeah,
the
you
argument.
actually looked this up, didn't you?
I did. I looked for antonyms to it. You know,
Because we were looking for a suitable word. And there isn't one.
and there isn't one.
Yeah.
Yeah, all we can say is non-hierarchical. And that tells you something about our society.
Nancy, yeah.
Yeah. Does equality do the job?
No.
Okay. Because?
Because it is not specific enough.
Okay.
To say, I can say hierarchical. I can tell you exactly what hierarchical means. But if I say equal, it doesn't have quite the same fit. It's not a bad word. I mean, I'm for equal. But it's also, it's a weird thing because here we say true communication is only possible between equals. So we have that idea of equality there. So I would say you're not wrong, but it's not as good a word as I want.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. So Palin has a suggestion. She says, I've heard people use fiat to mean non-hierarchical, as in flat. Is that flat? Thank you.
Yes.
Flat. As in our company is a flat organization. Yeah, that sounds more accurate. Thank you. But
yeah,
I mean, that could work.
Yeah, it still doesn't have the sense that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I can understand that. But
enough of that. Let's look again at what this means. So we have data, right? We'll call this after Gurdjieff, we'll call this knowledge. You can have a whole bunch of data. And you can even recite the data back mechanically. We learned to do that in school. Right? School is a matter of memorizing facts. But what that doesn't give you is understanding. And in order to use the data, you have to have understanding. In order to teach the data, you have to have at least a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So when a school is in session, the people who have more understanding will do their best to pass that understanding to the people who have less understanding. And they will do that starting with data. And if you look at our videos for the last 2.5 years, there's a whole lot of data that we're putting in there.
Mhm.
And that's so that we can have conversations like this.
Yeah, it's kind of a dispersal of knowledge that can be digested in the community together. And that's knowledge being cultivated into understanding together. So it's not just the teacher front loading information at you, though it may feel like that at first, especially when it's new stuff. But to synthesize that, the teacher sets the example of understanding, but the community gets to synthesize it together.
I have a question
Sure.
slash comment. Maybe to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Go for it.
So in your description, you talked about Sufism in the 17th century versus the 21st century.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if this hierarchical versus horizontal type of learning, training is two-part. One, in 17th century, say Turkey, was there a different understanding of adab or good manner or subtleties in the teachings that perhaps we don't have in the 21st century? So, your example with being a guest in that dergah, with that tariqah, the students may have a certain amount of responsibility of understanding how to interact with adab, with good manner, with the sheikh, and not always just agreeing. I think as trained Sufis, we learn to, yes, Shayam, yes, sheikh, when in reality, I've heard my sheikh say, I'm asking you your opinion.
Yes.
Hitting me over the head. But, as some of
Which
us,
is one of the reasons that makes him sort of unique for that sort of thing.
so, there's that double-edged sword of, you don't want to be whacked over the head or else where's the teaching, but that's kind of sort of needed perhaps in the 21st century in America, in Australia,
Yeah.
wherever we are.
It's funny
So,
you should mention that.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we are kind of trying to develop an adab for butterflies, as we're calling it. So we've had a lot of discussion about this. It's something I've been chewing on a lot because I do feel that there is this sense of valuing eldership that is missing in the culture that we find ourselves in the US and Australia, most like quote unquote Western countries. And that is spreading, that is becoming the norm. And while that is a little bit out of our focus today, I just want to assure you that this is something that we're chewing on a lot. And we are definitely going to be chewing on that, Mushtaq and I between us, and then whatever comes up for us, we want to offer it up and share it with everyone as well. But I do think that stuff is important. I think respecting eldership is important. And
it has been a problem. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you've had to do this too, Diane, but the idea of before the sheikh shows up someplace, I would occasionally have to go there and teach them how to be a good host.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to do something stupid.
Right. Yep.
So in making it more horizontal, having the students and the teacher be aligned to that adob, to that understanding, can make it more, what was the word you used, equal or
Yeah.
equitable, equal?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's an a mutual understanding of the learning situation. Or the,
Yeah, because teaching is an effortful process. It takes the energy of the teacher to share the knowledge and understanding that they have with others. So how do you support that as the person receiving that? And yeah, there's certainly teaching in that experience as well as the receiver of knowledge and caring for the giver of that knowledge. So we definitely don't want to disregard that. And I'm glad you brought it up because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot as part of this conversation that's been ongoing between me and Mushtaq. So thank you.
yeah, I think it is a part of the conversation, and no disrespect, but I think that it's an important part of the conversation. Yeah,
It's an
Absolutely.
incredibly important part of the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, well, there's a thing I've been, well, I guess from the student point of view, there you are, and you're both a living organism with a natural structure that needs not to be damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have a lot of nonsense from your culture. And, having your natural structure damaged hurts, and finding out that your parts of your culture are nonsense also hurts. And being able to distinguish what you should tolerate and what you should not, or the teacher knowing what should be pushed and what should not be pushed. This is actually kind of subtle stuff.
Yep.
Yes, it is. And it's important as a teacher to know how to push people's buttons in a way that will not damage them, even though it might make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think part of being a quote unquote adult in this work is kind of expecting that there will be discomfort and there will be challenging conversations and ideas that come up, just like they have today.
Yeah.
But you kind of just hold space for each other in sorting that shit out. And
Yeah.
of course, it takes skill on the part of the teacher to move through those difficult situations and set an example of grace and empathy as well. So
Yeah. Remember, one of the main qualities of adulthood for human beings is the experience, the act of loving kindness towards all creatures.
yeah.
So even if you make somebody uncomfortable, it needs to come from that.
Right.
There are plenty of groups out there who love to make you feel uncomfortable, but it's a form of control.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely.
And discomfort should be at best a side effect, at worst an accident. But discomfort is not it should never be the intention.
It shouldn't be a signal that the teacher is getting something right.
Definitely not that.
No, that shows more that the teacher is doing some ego shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my Tai Chi teacher who was very patient with me. In some, the thing is that I did not really have the idea of respecting a teacher. And so, he would tell me something about how I was moving and I couldn't feel it. And I would say, I wouldn't agree with him because it was not in my perceptions, which I think on the whole was educational for both of us. But
I bet it was, yeah.
But it's a hard thing to get right.
Yeah. And it takes practice. that's why you have a school in part, is to practice getting this stuff right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see Diane nodding her head. Yeah, she knows. Yep.
Practicing again and again and again, falling down,
Mhm.
getting up, falling down, getting up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Now, there is an idea of service, especially
Yes.
for teachers. A teacher is in service to the work.
Hmm.
They're not in service to any people. Students are also in service to the work, not in service to the teacher. If the teacher needs your service, they are not doing something right.
Now elaborate what you mean by service in that sense.
The most common one is the bhakti yoga, the selfless service to the guru,
Yeah.
where you go and clean the guru's garage for him, and that's supposed to make you more enlightened. It's great for the guru. And this is different than the community coming together for a barn raising or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because if like 15 of us came together and built a khanaga, built a Sufi house together, we would not be doing it for any body, any sheikh, any person. It would be done for the work.
Yep.
Good news is that we don't need to do that anymore. I helped do that in Iran, and it was some back-breaking labor. And everybody, every member of the community participated. I remember there was this one old man. He was probably in his late 80s, and he would walk over to the wheelbarrows and take one rock, probably about yay big, because that was as big as he could lift. And he would walk that rock over to where the foundations were being laid and put it in and go back and get another one. And that's what he could do. So he did it. And he was doing that for the work, not for the sheikh, because the sheikh would have probably rather he sat and relaxed and not risked a heart attack doing this shit.
Yeah. Yep. And we've said previously, the teacher does not point to themselves. They always point to the work, towards that shared sense of, of being committed to the work, to the teaching and learning.
Yeah. And this means that in these dark times, the work is non-authoritarian. There are plenty of authoritarian teachers out there, men and women on the top of the heap, who will tell you what to think and how to think and all like that. This is not that. There is the authority of the teaching, and it speaks for itself. There is no hierarchical authority within the school now. And this sounds a little bit dogmatic, and I mean it that way.
There's very little dogma, but this is one of those things, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those things that has to be said in this way.
Yeah. Nancy, I'm sorry. Diane, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Did you have a thought to share?
I was just curious, you kind of answered it, but I'm curious when you refer to the work, what are you referring to?
The work is a term that I stole from the Fourth Way people because it is so non-sectarian. The work is the tariqa. It is the path. It is how you get from mechanically asleep to awake.
Yeah, I often use the term the path, you know,
Yeah.
the way, but it's all kind of the same thing.
Yeah. And the choice of using the work was specifically because it's not attached to anything.
But it kind of still indicates action, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I would like it to be the play. The play would be way more fun. Unfortunately, there's that part where you have to tote that barge and lift that bale.
chop wood, carry water,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yep, all them things.
I had a comment.
Yeah, shoot, go for it.
So I'm trying to discover new ways of awakening.
Mm,
And you say, as a student, I need to be honest, tell the truth. If I'm going to be honest and tell the truth, that makes me vulnerable.
yeah,
To the degree I'm prepared to be honest,
right.
I'm giving the teacher my vulnerability. I have to trust. For me to do that, I have to trust that they have my well-being in their heart, that they care for my well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you say that is the essence of this new kind of 21st century teacher-student
Not only yes,
relationship?
but hell yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be you, Mushtaq, or it could be anyone, but you do most of the talking.
That's only because I
on
can't
these
get Nora to
videos.
talk more.
I realize that, and I think with my comments, you do most of the answering to my comments. But I'm open. I'm open for Noor to do more talking and more answering of my comments.
Yeah.
Do you
See,
hear that, Nora?
I am like what I'm hearing is the universe calling me out to step up. And I hear you, universe. I hear you. Like as far as the way I understand teaching, given the knowledge and understanding I've collected, I have a responsibility building up now to share it appropriately. And that means stepping out of my own comfort zone. That means doing my own work around feeling like I don't understand enough and that I'm going to hurt people with what I say, or, you know, all this like stuff that bubbles around in there. Like, Jonathan, I think I want to honor what you're saying and thank you for saying it, because, yeah, I think I do feel called to step up. And if that's what people are wanting to see from me, then it feels all the more pressing that I do. So thank you.
Yeah. I want to be the sidekick.
Yeah. Yep. So does that feel okay to hear, Jonathan?
Yes, it does. My personal fear for being the one who is sharing and honest as the student, or on the rare occasion I become the teacher, my fear in both cases is that it's going to be discovered that I'm ignorant.
Oh, I feel you so much.
That my lie is going to be discovered. So
yes.
Yeah.
I can empathize.
Even though
with
you
that
have from time to
wholeheartedly.
time said some pretty damn brilliant things.
I agree. Absolutely.
oh, thank you.
And I hope you can take that in, because it feels very true. and you have a lot to offer this community. I mean, that's part of this, is that there's something that is more than the sum of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever many people we have here. This is more than just the 8 people sitting here tonight. There's something emergent from that. And it's amazing when people contribute their own knowing and their own understanding, because we all benefit from that. So it is scary to share. It is very vulnerable. But I invite you to, to step into that and see what comes out.
And it's important that you pay attention to how we behave. Do we respect you?
Mm-hmm. That's our job, is to set that example of respect.
And it doesn't matter if Nora or I know more about a subject than you do. Every human being is worthy of respect. And
every being.
Yeah.
That's my point of view.
Yeah, dolphins, whales, the whole 9 yards,
Mm-hmm.
spiders, it all.
Yeah.
But
QAnon supporters?
What's that?
QAnon supporters?
Yes, even QAnon supporters, even them, yes.
Yeah. You can, trust me, I know this for a fact because I used to work in a psychiatric ward. You can respect crazy people. It does not make them any less crazy, but they still have their inwardness.
Yeah. So I think I haven't read the whole thing. I want to read it out loud. This comment from Mr. Keem, which may touch on that. He says that would require a team of people with no or less ego or certain development in awakeness or adulthood to be able to work on equal terms. If people think and bring their own supposed truths on their own levels, wouldn't there be chaos?
If they bring their beliefs, there could be chaos.
Mm-hmm.
But we have no interest in belief. We have no interest in anyone's mythology. We have no interest in anyone's religion. We have interest in the truth. And the truth must be able to be verified, and the truth must be able to be falsified. This is one of the great things that Islam gave us, is the idea of the scientific method. And in order for something to be tested scientifically, it must be able to be proven false.
Mm. How's that landing for you, Mr. Keene? It's good? Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this is why I say that the work in this dark time is created for those who are on the path to adulthood, is that you don't get all of the beliefs. You don't get all of the crazy ideas coming in. And they will at some point, because every school follows a bell-shaped curve. No school, you get the school, it comes up, peaks up here, and then drops off, and a little bit later is gone. The school is ephemeral.
Yeah, which gets us to our third part, really.
Tell us about the third part.
All right, so the thing about the school is that as a quote-unquote institution, it's designed to thrive specifically at the grassroots, which for me means, first of all, the school does not exist in a particular place, but instead it forms physical and virtual temporary autonomous zones. Remember, we mentioned those in the beginning, in which teaching happens. And this enables the school to remain relatively unencumbered by prevailing cultural restraints. So this is kind of a weird one, but historically schools have, for the most part, happened in a place. Like there's a building you go to, or, you know, you have to trek there on a long journey. That is not going to be the case for us or for the majority of, you know, broadly speaking, schools from here on out.
Yeah, not in this cycle.
Yeah.
Right now, we are all sitting in a temporary autonomous zone. We come together, we talk, we are not constrained by the strictures of the cultures in which we live. And when I hit the end session button, it disappears. It no longer exists.
Ephemeral. Yeah.
And while Noor and I might build a retreat center one day where people can come and spend time working on themselves from time to time, most of our teaching is going to be in this ephemeral manner.
Yeah. Yep.
And even when the COVID restrictions are lifted and we can go out and teach seminars in the world and that sort of thing, those are going to be temporary autonomous zones too.
Yeah. Yep. And another thing is the size of the school. Like intentionally, we feel that it's better when the numbers remain small in terms of the members and the people involved, because getting that, you know, that quality work time with a teacher is where it's at for this cycle, as opposed to having like the guru on the stage in front of like, you know, 5,000 people who never get to engage with the teacher in a meaningful way.
Yes. The rule of this cycle is a teacher should have no more students than she or he can know personally.
Yeah. And in a world where you have like mass marketing across the globe, and you kind of have to like choose how you want to develop your school. Do you want it to be this mass thing where like anybody and everybody can become involved and maybe get some of the juice of the teachings, but they don't really get that teacher in service to them and their learning and their teaching together? I mean, personally speaking, that doesn't interest me. The whole like spewing it out into the abyss and seeing if anybody catches it. So I prefer this one-on-one stuff, and maybe not just like one-on-one stuff, but the things we're doing as a small group here tonight, and people on YouTube, they do get to be part of that, and they are equally part of the community.
That's how we got Jonathan.
Yeah. And it's just like, as Jonathan, I'm sure, knows, there's something unique about being able to engage directly. So I'm glad he took that plunge. Yep. Yeah. And one of the big things is that the focus is on the teaching and learning, as I said, and not on the teachers or the institution. So sometimes you have these situations where everybody is like, the school must survive, or, you know, the teachings must survive in a book form on paper, and we must live to it word for word. That's not going to fly now either.
No, the school will not survive.
No, it won't. And that might feel weird to say. I remember when I first started thinking about that, it kind of felt mournful. It felt like, oh, there's going to be a loss here. There's going to be a death here. And there's no coming back from that. But as I moved through that, I realized that that is what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to organically die away. The school is supposed to organically die away. And the knowledge lives on either through the students who have been supported in becoming teachers in their own right. They get to carry the knowledge, or the knowledge goes into hibernation and emerges organically in its own time once again, sometime down the line. And perhaps both of those things happen. But either way, that's a death that can be mourned lovingly.
Yeah, the work is eternal. It's not going to go away. It's, as far as I can tell, imprinted on the very structure of the universe.
Mm.
And it could be wiped out completely and it would still reemerge.
Well, what's true is true,
Yeah.
regardless of anyone acknowledging it or not, really. So it's there.
But the school cannot survive, should not survive. And we see all of the examples of it trying to survive in various groups that, you know, the teacher dies, they have the teachings, and because they don't understand the teachings, they try and just repeat them for generations sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, another responsibility that members of the school have is to resist that inclination to deify the teacher or make the teachings into dogma or otherwise like cling too much to what has passed. I mean, there's a valuing of tradition, there's a valuing of what has come before, and there's something to be said for that, but it's different from clinging to it and being stuck to it in a way that prevents expansion and evolution and seeing what can be made anew.
Yep. So right now, the school is Noor and I. Eventually, the school will be Noor. Then the school will be whatever her teachers or her students who become teachers create.
Mm-hmm.
It is not
Yeah.
going to be the Mushtaq and Noor school. It will not have, I mean, the name the nine-sided circle might get inherited by somebody, maybe not.
Maybe
I hope
not. I think it's important for us to be detached from that.
Yeah. There is nothing about the particular way that we are doing this that needs to be held inviolate. I mean, I've been rereading In Search of the Miraculous, Ouspensky's account of his early work with Gurdjieff. And it's been 30 years since I've read the book. And I am struck by how much utter bullshit is in it. Complete,
pretty serious bullshit.
It's 19th century pseudoscience. And it made sense in that time. That was the language that people spoke. To look at it now and attempt to recreate that milieu in your mind is worthless. And I was reading a chapter today, and the statement was made, energy cannot be transferred without matter. And the Michelson-Morley experiment proved that wrong decades and decades and decades ago. And yet there it was in black and white, or black and yellow, because the book is old.
And that, yeah, that'll happen to us too.
That will for sure happen to us because our knowledge will advance. In 100 years from now, somebody will find our videos and watch them and go, God, they were quaint.
Did they really believe that? That's so weird. Yeah.
At least let's hope so.
I hope so. Yeah. And that will be a good thing
Yes.
if that ends up being the case. So we've thrown a lot at you guys this evening. I know that this is all kind of not necessarily out there, but I feel like we haven't really had the opportunity to explore this domain up until now. So I'd be curious to hear what's coming up for you guys. What are your thoughts, your questions? You've shared a lot, and I appreciate that very much.
Before we do that, there's one thing that we have not touched on that is
Oh, okay.
incredibly important,
Okay, yeah, let's
and
do
that
that.
is in the school as it exists today in these dark ages.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
concept of affirmative consent is
Yes.
absolutely necessary.
Okay, glad you brought that up, because
Talk to us about
we
that.
care about that a lot. Okay, so, you know, we've talked a lot about adulthood and self-responsibility and equals and all that stuff, but none of that can stand unless we talk about the role of affirmative consent in the relationship between the student and the teacher. Because
And
again,
everybody in the school.
yeah, exactly. This is kind of like a shared relationship that is not just between the teacher and student, but between all members of the community at large. There does need to be this kind of cultural norm of affirmative consent. And what that looks like in practice, specifically for the teacher, is that the teacher does not seek to teach anyone who has not given affirmative consent to be taught. That means they're seeking guidance. That means they're inviting guidance. They're said to this person who is in the role of the teacher, hey, I would like to work with you. How does that seem for you? Does that seem like a good idea? And then the teacher in turn gets to affirmatively consent. Yes, I think that would be a good idea. Or, you know, no, I don't think necessarily that we would be the right fit for each other, or whatever it is. But in order to proceed, both parties have to be on board and say, yes, this is what I want.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And
So
attached to that, and I want you to speak to this too, is the idea of influence and authority.
yeah, so there's this vulnerability factor, as Jonathan mentioned. I don't know why I'm getting everybody's names mixed up today. I'm sorry, guys. But
That's because Jonathan and I have wonderful haircuts.
it's true. Lovely. You and Mr. Keem and Jonathan, excellent. Yeah, there's this idea of influence and authority, and these things are not something the teacher gets because they are deserving or because they are entitled to them. They are a loan from the student. And what that means, through affirmative consent, you're creating that sense of rapport with one another. You're creating that sense of safety and vulnerability with one another, as Jonathan mentioned. And due influence is different from undue influence. And what that means is you are asking for guidance and feedback and ego checking from someone who is going to be not looking to run your whole life for you. It's going to be very context dependent. They're not trying to like cut you off from your friends and family and say, worship me and all that stuff. The only influence due to them is that which is going to guide you in your work. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here? Feel free to elaborate on that, Mushtaq.
I think that you're saying it pretty good.
As far as authority goes, when I say that the student loans authority through affirmative consent, that's something that needs to be returned with interest. And that's how we tie in this idea that the student is being supported in their journey towards becoming a teacher in their own right. If that's not seen to be the goal in some form or another, then the student is not getting a return on their investment of loaning that authority to the teacher.
That is a really good way to say it.
Because you don't, here's the thing, with this, with what we're going for here, we're going for this, you know, we're in the process of awakening. If we're not progressing towards that and we're just kind of creating a culture in which everyone is encouraged to be stuck where they are, which may mean, you know, being in a relationship with the teacher in such a way that the student doesn't get to become the teacher, that's in my opinion, that's not a healthy relationship. There should always be this striving towards giving the student the authority to be a teacher in their own right.
Yeah, whether they teach formally or run a hamburger stand.
Exactly. I mean, the way I see it is being a teacher can be a very subtle thing. You're a knowledge carrier. You're a wisdom carrier. You've earned that.
Mustaqim has a good question down here. He's saying, the affirmative consent, is that the same with bayat in some tariqah?
I think in some ways it is. There's less of this like dedication to the teacher, but there is that dedication to the work, to the process.
Yeah. And that also, it depends on the tariqah.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, I mean, there are some where you swear to be as passive as the corpse and the corpse handler's hands and things like that. And
you just
you
like
have no
absorb.
will, you give all your will to the sheikh and all that. And there are others where it is a contract that goes both ways, where you ask to be accepted as a student and the sheikh asks to be accepted as your teacher. I mean, that's the first thing. Do you accept me as your sheikh? You know, and that's straight on affirmative consent. So with us, it is a contract of affirmative consent more than anything else. Well, there is one other part of it, but we won't get into that right now. Does that answer your question, Mustaqim?
Yes. Cool.
So this is a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. So now, may we open the floor to everybody?
Who are you asking?
I'm, you know, yes, the floor is open. You guys may share your thoughts.
Thank you. You see what I got to put up with?
He's always shoving me like, nope, stop that. Stop, you know. What do you think, Zainab?
I had a question on to see if it's aligned with the last point you mentioned with the virtuality of the teaching is
Yeah.
that it with the, if I want to like have image, it would be more like, okay, there's a light that is being lit on or passed to all the students, and then how they would use that in their own environment would be probably quite different from how the teacher is doing the work. Or say it in another way, is it like doing the work in, not in a monastery, but in your own environment with the taste that suits you.
I do think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I do as well. Our job is not to create clones of ourselves. Our job is just to give you the tools and the knowledge and the understanding to go out and do what you do.
Mhm.
First wake up, then do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool. Thank you, Zainab. Hey, Peylon, is it okay if I call on you? Yeah.
This was a heavier night than what
Yeah.
I had originally came in expecting. So during the talk, I was reminded of a recent documentary on gurus that I had watched, and how all of a sudden it feels like there are lots of them,
Mm.
and they all promise many, many shiny things. And I am reminded of my own path looking for guidance before I found Mishtak you. So yeah, there is it's very different. It also reminds me of something that another teacher had said before, which is there is a difference between teacher and student, that relationship, versus teacher and client relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is an important distinction, because Noor and I have many clients, but few students at this point.
Mm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we mean the same thing though, and I want to make sure that we delineate that a bit.
Yeah. For me, a student is an ongoing process. A client is terminated. Somebody comes to me and they say, I'm having bad dreams. I would like my dreams to not be bad. And
Speaking
so,
metaphorically, right?
yeah, speaking metaphorically or actually.
Literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I help them to have okay dreams, and then we're done.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, somebody comes to me and says, I need to quit smoking cigarettes. They're killing me.
Yeah.
You know, I get them to quit smoking, then we're done.
Yep.
Whereas a student is going to be stuck with me for a long time.
Stuck with each other. Yep. Yeah. Does that make sense, Peylon? Is that in line with what you were thinking? Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Yep. What do you think, Nancy?
Well, I was thinking about how one of the things about this era, maybe this dark age, is a lot of people on various political sides seem to think that you have a moral obligation to take charge of other people, make them get things right.
Yeah.
And, the idea that, well, you tend your own garden, you go underground if necessary, you try to maintain your own sanity and encourage it in other people. But, consent.
Yes. Consent. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're all smart enough to realize we can barely take care of ourselves, let alone all these people out there.
Yeah, well, does this mean that you have an obligation to make sure your society doesn't turn vicious? And the answer is, well, if you can't, you can't, I guess.
I have no obligation to make this society do anything.
Mm.
My only obligation is to the people who are led to me by the universe, who are my students.
Yeah.
So I have an obligation to Peylon. the country can go fuck itself. Palin is
So-
important.
So you ran about masks, but that's just sort of for the fun of it?
I rant about masks. I don't even rant about masks. I rarely even mention them these days, but I suggest that people wear masks. Do I make anybody wear a mask? No.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and there's a difference there, right?
Yeah,
Like you can
and
share
everything on my
values are.
Facebook feed is private, so only my
Mhm.
friends see it. I don't say anything to the public.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So in that case, I'm preaching to the choir for the most part.
Yeah. Diane, you have any thoughts you want to add?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Thank-
no problem. Mr. Keene, you got any thoughts you want to add? Nope. All right. How about you, Jonathan? No. Okay.
Damn it.
Well, everyone said some really vulnerable stuff and some good gut checking type stuff. Yeah. So I appreciate all that. Thank you. Yeah. Well, that's all I got. I think this was a lot, and I think it'll be really good to take a week to just digest this.
Rather than taking a week, let's take 2 weeks.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes, 2 weeks, because we are not doing a talk next weekend due to the holiday that many people celebrate or have vacations during. So
Yeah.
we will be taking a break next weekend.
But we will have that interview up for you.
Yeah, so that will be our content for next week, I think. And like we said, that will be released about midweek. And
Yeah, as soon as I get approval from
Okay,
Rezan
so
about everything, I'm going to
we'll leave it a little bit open-ended so that we can respect consent
Yes.
in relation to our interviewee. And there we go. Cool. You got anything you want to add, Mishtak?
Above all else, be silly.
Speaking of being silly, let's go on Brady Bunch mode.
We're on Brady Bunch mode.
We are, yay! My favorite. Okay, so here's where we wave to everyone who's been watching from afar on YouTube and send our well wishes and say goodnight to each other, or good morning or afternoon or whatever.
Good night.
Bye.